All right, where we left off was with the quick selection tool. So going beyond the lasso to make selections. So here is the quick selection tool. There's two in this drawer that we'll use for this purpose, the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. So the quick selection tool, you can set its size. I have it pretty small here. But basically, when you're just dealing with black and white, you just paint an area and it will guess what you're trying to select. And because I have it on add mode here, it will keep adding to the selection I've already chosen, which is a pretty default way of using the quick selection tool. I can always go back in my history before I selected anything. So if I want to just select these solid blacks, I just kind of paint in that and immediately it makes a guess. And for work that doesn't need to be terribly precise, this is a good thing to use. So I just hit delete and it will take out all those solids. But you might notice with these shortcut selection tools, it might leave tiny traces of debris because it selected the solid blacks, not the little gray edges of the lines from that scan. So then I might just go in with my regular lasso tool and clean it up. Now at this point I have so many layers showing, it's really hard to know which layer I'm affecting. And that becomes a common problem in Photoshop, being able to understand which layer is what. And that's where toggling on and off the eyeballs is really helpful. And if you need to, you can eventually label your layers just by double-clicking on their names. So for instance, if I want to get rid of these little spiky hairs coming out of this shape, Bugs Bunny's tail, I need to know what layer they're on before I can delete them. So I try different eyeballs, and that will show me, oh, it's this layer. So I select that layer, hit delete. Very good. Bless you. So as you want more and more refined work, you find yourself doing more and more zooming in. And that's where those navigation shortcuts really become helpful. Command plus to zoom in. Command minus to zoom out. Hold down spacebar to move around while you're zoomed in, and Command 0 to fit it all on the screen. And Command D to deselect. Okay. Just one more layer to put in there. We want to have 5. It's a challenge. It feels like a lot. But challenges are good for us. Right click in there. If you want to right click with your stylus, just hold down the control button and click, and that will be a right click. I like to have it so the mouse is accessible alongside the stylus. But all the same, I don't always want to have to reach for the mouse for certain functions. Now what if I want to change my transformation right in the middle? So I've warped it, and I like that, but now I'm going to control click, and I'm going to change to rotating it. It will keep my warp, but then it will allow me to switch to a rotating mode, which is quite handy. Or I could flip it and rotate it some more. And all of this is temporary until I hit return. Okay, so I'm close to done here. It's a good time to save it. And because we've already given it a name and it's a PSD file, we don't need to say save as. But it's never a bad idea. We could just say save and it will do what I'm going to do here. So if you say save as, but then you don't change anything, it will ask you if you want to write over your last file. And we do. We want to update it with this new file. Now I'm just going to spend some time using the lasso and deleting parts that I don't think are needed, that are kind of visually too much. I don't need it to make sense. This is my own composition. It's like a Jackson Pollock drawing. Crazy lines going everywhere. But I want to assert my own control over where I want there to be a lot of visual interest and where I want it to open up a little bit more. I'm doing that just by cutting away content and deleting it. Editing. And the way I basically go about this, and this jumble exercise matches my own personal aesthetic quite a bit, is just anything that looks too identifiable, I try to edit out. So if this all looks like one contained shape, I try to find places where I can interfere with that read. So instead it becomes dependent on some of the other shapes. And sometimes I'll just make a shape and delete almost arbitrarily. So something like this. Woo. Just to show you the shape I painted. Oh, let's do it on a new layer. So I did this shape. I just drew it arbitrarily, but it has kind of the energy and the movement of the Looney Tunes. And so now with that shape, I'm going to delete that across some different layers and just see if I like the result. It kind of opens it up. And then I can deselect and maybe make another one. Oops, on the painting tool. So another shape. I'm just painting it so you can see what these look like, these shapes I'm drawing. So now this shape, I'll delete that. Open it up a little bit. Now the reason we can go in and zoom in and refine it as much as we can is because we chose reference that was high enough resolution to begin with. You know, at least 6 megapixels. And that's why, even though these lines are made up of grids of pixels, and if we zoom in enough, they'll look choppy and stair-steppy. We can even taper some off if we want. When they're printed and viewed at full size, so 100%, they look pretty nice. They're not terrible. And that's good. All right, just a few more. Big shapes, selective editing. The beauty of erasing, the more you erase, the more you're making your own decisions about what part of the content that you're using is valid to your own vision, your own idea. And the reason it's called free transform is even though you're using something that already exists, we are making our own creative choices about how it's used. And if we do that enough, in America and in copyright law, it is considered a transformed object, not a derivative object that we are creating. And that's up to a jury to determine, or a judge to determine in such cases. But if your ambition can always be to transform your content, even if it's taken from different references, then they'll have a much harder time saying you can't do it. And that's why Disney has yet to successfully sue Arturo Herrera for doing this with their work. He's kind of a folk hero in copyright circles. Okay, now to finish this up, very quickly, I have the image I like. I could always tweak it a little bit more, so I'm going to make sure it's saved. And this is the fun last step. I am going to hold down Option. I'm going to go on the very top layer, hold down Option, and then go up to Layer. And while Option is held down, I'm going to click on Merge Visible. Okay. And what that does is it gives me one layer at the top. It doesn't delete any of my other layers. That's what Option did for me. One layer at the top that's everything flattened together. Now the reason I want that is because then I can select only the black lines. And I'm going to do that by using the magic wand tool and unchecking contiguous, keeping it at a tolerance of about 32, which is the standard default, and clicking on the white. And what the magic wand tool does, if you have contiguous unchecked, then it's going to pick every pixel within a certain tolerance that is in that layer. So in this case, all the whites. If you have contiguous checked, it will be only the whites that are touching each other. So this is what uncontiguous does. If I delete, takes out all the white. That's what I want us to do. But let's see what would happen if I did the magic wand with contiguous checked. Now it would just be all the whites that connect on the outside. So I want, in this case, contiguous unchecked, and delete all of them.